Welcome back, everybody, to our five-part series to foster your best health. This is an Institute for Natural Medicine five-part series that we're very excited to share with you here. And we hope that you've been able to watch the previous iterations. Today, our topic is on your at-home natural medicine cabinet. And we have two wonderful subject matter experts joining us that have a broad range of experience and expertise in helping us understand many of the natural things around us that can be used at home to help prevent and treat common ailments. And we're just so thrilled to be able to share this information with you. And we hope that you will turn around and share it with other people. I want to bring on my co-host, Dr. Beverly Yates from San Francisco, to introduce our first guest.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Rothenberg. I appreciate that. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Judith Boyce. She is a naturopathic physician, an acupuncturist, a #1 international best-selling author, and an award-winning author and a teacher. She very much lives what she teaches others and shares with her patients. Her mission is treating the whole person, not just the symptoms, and delivering sustainable health care rather than quick fixes. She believes that when people know what being healthy looks like for them, they get to have a great life, whether that's riding bikes with their grandchildren, running 3 Ironman competitions in a year, or staying healthy in a high-pressure job. She believes vibrant wellness is the natural outcome when people live in harmony with the earth, their body, and their spirit. Dr. Boyce graduated from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine and Oregon College of Oriental Medicine. She's been in practice for 25 years and is a fellow of the American Board of Naturopathic Oncology. The acronym is FABNO, and senior vitalist of the Naturopathic Medical Institute. She is also an associate professor for the American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine doctoral program and an assistant professor at the American College of Healthcare Sciences. Dr. Boyce worked for 3 years at Cancer Treatment Centers of America Southwestern Regional Medical Center. She lives in Southern Oregon. I also know that Dr. Boyce has a family history of both being a doctor and an herbalist in the finest tradition. She has women who are elders in her family who served in that role in their communities. And it's just wonderful that Dr. Boyce has continued on a very much needed and wanted tradition. With that, I welcome Dr. Judith Boyce.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yates. It's my joy and my honor to be here, actually, to be sharing with you. Today, I want to be sharing with you how to develop your own home medicine chest. Some of the territory that we're going to be covering is how to develop new reflexes. I can't tell you how many times I've had a patient come in and they've sprained an ankle or they've bruised themselves somehow, and I'll say, oh, did you take arnica right away? And they'll say, it's like one of those, I could have had a V8 moments. And they'll say, I totally forgot about it. So I'll be sharing with you things that will allow you to begin to create new reflexes for what you reach for in your medicine chest. We'll be talking about different types of natural medicines, ways to take plant medicines, and the top 5 remedies for you to begin your own home medicine chest. And I have to tell you, it was really hard to squeeze things down to just 5. It was sort of like being told, well, you can only invite 5 people to your birthday party. So it was that there are 5 incredibly versatile, deep acting remedies. And I'll also be sharing with you next steps that you can take to begin to fill your own home medicine chest. This information that you'll be receiving today from me and from also from Dr. Orna is definitely information for you if you are interested in improving your own health and your family's health using natural medicines. If you want to avoid unnecessary trips to the urgent care or the ER, of course there are times when you need to go to the ER or urgent care, but sometimes people end up going when really they could have taken care of some of those conditions at home. If you want medicine that addresses your whole entire being, your body, mind, and spirit, and you're tired of the side effects of over-the-counter medicines and pharmaceutical drugs, this is definitely information for you. Another piece that to me is so important about what I call green medicines is they're sustainable. They're things that grow. They increase our relationship and our dependency on the earth. One of the things I've learned from indigenous elders I've worked with around the world is that if we have the heart and the mind to listen, everything that we require grows or lives is located within 50 miles of where we live. So my aim is always to seek local plants and remedies first. I'm going to make a couple of exceptions in the things that I share today, but first and foremost, I aim to look locally for the medicines. Often we become enamored with things that come from far away. They seem more exotic. Often the things in our own backyard are calibrated for us and very, very effective. We need to ideally gather and use these medicines with great respect. 100 years ago, herbalists over-harvested coptis, which is a plant that's rich in berberines. It's excellent for infections. And so they started saying, hey, we got to quit harvesting the coptis and start using hydrastis, golden seal, instead. Now we've gotten to the point we've over-harvested golden seal and we're going back to coptis. So it's really important that we protect the areas where these plants grow so we can continue to harvest them for many generations to come. When we rely on plant medicines, we rely on having a diverse plant community in our backyard and our environment and our ecosystem, instead of relying on petroleum, which is the base for many of the pharmaceutical drugs. Some of the methods for preparing these plant medicines, most of us are familiar with teas. If you're creating a tea with something that's more of a leafy base or a flower, like chamomile is an example of a flower, you steep the herbs. So you prepare boiling water, pour a cup of boiling water and put the leaves or the flowers, and you steep for 5 to 10 minutes. If the plant is tougher, more fibrous, woodier, then you actually decoct, which means gently simmer, not a big rolling boil, but a simmer of the root or the bark for 5 to 10 minutes. So for an example of that might be ginger or cinnamon. You would decoct those roots or bark forms of plant medicine. Tinctures are made by putting the plant material in alcohol and letting it sit anywhere from a few days to a couple of weeks. Then you strain off the plant material and you use the remaining liquid. The tinctures are about 70% alcohol. Succus is plant juice, the pressing of the plant, and then adding alcohol to that plant juice. I'll show you a picture in just a moment of a plant that's commonly used to make succus, plant juice. The succus preparations have less alcohol. They're only 30% alcohol, 70% plant material. Poultices are using usually fresh herbs, and they're either mashed or ground and then placed directly on the body and then covered with a cloth and left in place for a period of time. And finally, you can directly eat many of the plants that we'll be talking about. One example, feverfew, which is used for migraine headaches, actually performed better in research studies when someone ate a fresh leaf of the feverfew on a daily basis instead of using dried feverfew. So there are a few herbs that actually perform better when they're fresh. This is calendula, one of my favorite friends. I didn't invite to the party, but I wanted to slide in, give you a little extra bonus. Calendula succus I think of as the natural Bactine. It has less alcohol than a tincture. Remember, it's only 30% alcohol. It has antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral actions, and it's also soothing. It's a vulnerary. So it's an excellent product to use if you have a scrape, a cut, an abrasion on the skin. Dosing plant medicines relies on really taking into consideration the age of the person and the size of their body. Elders generally require lower doses, not only of herbs, but also of pharmaceutical medicines, because their livers don't clear things as quickly. So for elders and children, generally you're going to be using much lower doses than an adult who's in their 40s, 50s. So for an adult, a general rule of thumb is that 2 dropperfuls of a tincture or 2 capsules every 2 to 4 hours. It says 2 to 3 there, but it depends on whether you're working with an acute condition or a chronic long-term condition. Not as often if it's a chronic long-term condition. For 6-year-olds, you use half that amount. A 3-year-old, a quarter that amount, and a 1-year-old, a sixth of the adult dosage. There are also certain herbs that are more appropriate for adults than children. We don't have time to go into that today, but just know it also varies with the herb, which ones are most appropriate. But I wanted to give you some rules of thumb for the dosing. So who were the 5 that got invited to the party? We'll be talking about a vitamin, an herb, a homeopathic remedy, essential oil, and finally, actually a combination of flower essences. probably the most popular nutrient that many people are familiar with is vitamin C. We are one of only 5 animals that don't make our own vitamin C. Those are fruit bats, parakeets, guinea pigs, humans, and monkeys. Those are the 5 that can't produce their own vitamin C. The more stress an animal is under, the more vitamin C that it will produce. So for example, a medium-sized dog under stress will make about 15 grams of vitamin C a day. That's 15,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And yet the recommended daily allowance, the US government recommended daily allowance, is only 90 milligrams for a man or 75 milligrams for a woman. That's just enough to keep you from having scurvy, but it's not necessarily enough for optimal health. And that's what the RDA is meant for, the absolute minimum that you require to be in basic good health. If you take too much vitamin C at one time, the body will dump the excess and you'll have loose stools. So if you start taking a lot of vitamin C and notice that your stools are loose, that means you need to back off on the amount you're taking and probably also spread apart the timing of the dosages. Ideally, you don't take more than 500 milligrams at a time. The body can't really utilize more than that. It's a water-soluble vitamin. So it'll use as much as it can within 45 to 60 minutes and then dump the rest. So if you take too much at one time, you just end up with expensive urine. So just use around 500 milligrams at a time for an adult. Be careful if you're someone who suffers with asthma. If you take more than 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C in a day, you may actually start running some of the inflammatory pathways, which is obviously not your intention. So be careful if you're someone with asthma. Garlic, the stinking rose. This is one of the star herbs. And by the way, when you start learning about herbs and plant medicines, most people begin learning what I call take this for that. You learn specific things about that particular plant. But keep in mind, and Dr. Orna is going to go much more deeply into this, every plant has multiple actions. It's kind of like getting to know a person. Like you meet so-and-so, you find out they're a great cook. Then later you find out, wow, they're an artist too, and a musician. You find out over time that plant medicines have many facets to them. So a couple I'm going to mention for this rock star herb, garlic, is its antimicrobial action, its ability to address bacteria, virus, and fungus. When garlic is crushed, like when you're preparing garlic for a meal and you crush the garlic, the process of crushing it creates something called allicin, and allicin is a specific constituent that's triggered. The formation is triggered when you crush the garlic, and that's its strong antimicrobial component. The garlic also has fabulous actions in support of the blood vessels. It will reduce platelet aggregation, how sticky the blood is, how willing it is to clot, and it also helps to support the health of the blood vessels. Arnica montana, and I'm going to be talking about Arnica montana 30C, which is a homeopathic remedy. Homeopathic remedies are very dilute preparations of a plant medicine, and also other things besides plants are used to make homeopathic remedies. Their aim is to catalyze, to boost the body to go back to normal function. They're not trying to manipulate specific neurotransmitter pathways or changing biochemistry. They're engaging our body's own innate intelligence to be able to bring about a change. So arnica is the classic remedy for any kind of soft tissue injury, bruising, bleeding. It's an excellent remedy to think of if there's hemorrhaging, of course, on the way to the hospital, concussion, head injury, and also shock. And each remedy addresses a specific condition in a different way. For the person who would benefit from arnica, they may be in shock, but they're often in denial about it. They just fell 2 stories off the roof of a building where they've been roofing, and they dust themselves off and say, gotta get back to work. They're often in denial about how injured they are. Essential oils. This is one of my special passions. Essential oils are the volatile oils in a plant, the ones that evaporate quickly and easily. They only comprise a very small amount of the plant, usually 1 to 2% of the plant. They're so concentrated, though, they're so strong that even in the plant, they tend to be walled off. I'll be saying something more in just a moment about how strong they are. And these essential oils can help keep other plants and animals away. They're also released if the plant is damaged somehow, like if it's damaged by too much sun or lack of water. In the desert in Australia, the eucalyptus will actually release the essential oil, and it'll make kind of a haze around the leaves, which will protect them from the desiccating, the drying properties of the sun. So if you don't take anything else away from this presentation, I'd encourage you to take this fact away with you. 1 drop of an essential oil is roughly equivalent to 30 cups of tea. That's incredibly concentrated, incredibly potent. So these essential oils require being used with great respect. If I could only choose one to bring to the party, it would be tea tree, Melaleuca alternifolia. This is an example of a tea tree bog on the coast of Australia. I was blessed actually many years ago to go swimming and have a mud fight in one of these Melaleuca tea tree bogs. Melaleuca tea tree essential oil is excellent for infections. It's particularly beneficial as an antifungal. It's one of the strongest antifungal essential oils that we have. It's also antivenomous. I had a colleague whose husband was bit by a brown recluse spider in the night, right on his forehead. They immediately put the tea tree on in the morning and then several more times over a couple of days. He had complete healing within 2 or 3 days, which if you know anything about brown recluse spider bites, that's extraordinary because usually the bite continues to eat away at the skin and sometimes even down into the bone. So this is one of the few essential oils that can be used neat, which means without dilution. It can be applied directly on the skin. You have to be careful though, because if it's been open for more than 6 months, it begins to oxidize and then can cause skin irritation. You can still use it after 6 months, but ideally it's diluted in a vegetable oil. Flower essences are also plant medicines. They're made by placing the flowers in a clear glass bowl of water and leaving it in the sun for 4 hours. They're very subtle, very gentle, but deep acting remedies. Their primary sphere of support is in the mental emotional realm. Again, they're not changing neurotransmitters or trying to change biochemistry, but they're helping give more ballast so that it's possible to work more effectively with emotions as they come up. If I could only choose one, it's actually a combination of 5 of the flower essences. It's called Rescue Remedy or 5 Flower Essence. They're the same remedy with 2 different names. And the 5 I want to introduce you to very briefly are Clematis, Rock Rose, Impatience, Star of Bethlehem, and Cherry Plum. They each approach shock or trauma or stress from different angles, and together they're like putting together pieces of a puzzle. So Clematis is for someone who's either very stressed or in shock, and they are drowsy, kind of dreamy, out of it. They're really not fully present. This is typical of someone who's in acute shock. Remember, it doesn't have to be as bad as shock as something like after an auto accident. This might be stress like getting ready for a presentation at work or a test at school or going to the dentist. Those are the kinds of stress situations also that you might be using the Rescue Remedy. Rock Rose, Dr. Edward Bach, who was responsible for the renaissance of the flower essences in the early 20th century, he said this is the trauma remedy, the rescue remedy, Rock Rose. It's excellent for any kind of emergency where there appears to be no hope, and it helps give the person a sense of calm. And patience is exactly what the name says. The person, they want to be well yesterday. They want to get things done quickly. Cherry Plum is for someone who's concerned that they are so overwhelmed they're actually going to break, that they're going to have a mental break. So Cherry Plum helps give a sense of mental strength and stability, a sense of confidence in the middle of a stress or trauma situation. And finally, Star of Bethlehem. Isn't that a beautiful picture? I just love the picture of this particular flower. This is the kind of shock that where someone is frightened or shocked so that they feel like they've actually left their body. They might say something like, wow, I felt like I jumped out of my skin. I was just beside myself. The Star of Bethlehem helps to reunite body, mind, spirit so that they are once again whole cloth. So these 5, Clematis, Rock Rose, Impatience, Star of Bethlehem, Cherry Plum, they're each approaching stress or trauma from different directions, together creating a synergy that helps with stress, helps to calm, can be used also for having difficulty going to sleep at night. So from minor to major trauma. I mentioned earlier, I'd share with you ways that you can take a deeper dive in learning about plant medicines and other things for your medicine chest. I have lots of resources on drjudithboyce.com or greenmedicinechest.com. If you really want to take a deeper dive and go into a deep training so that you can use natural medicines as your first go-to and be your own home health advisor, you can also go to greenmedicineacademy.com/GMC-training. That's Green Medicine Chest Training, greenmedicineacademy.com GMC training. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to hear what Dr. Isaacson has to say.
Right, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Boyce. That was a wonderful presentation. You did a great job. You made it clear and compelling. And I think that, you know, bringing to life what it is people can use in their own environment is a great message. Many times there's resources right around us that we might not even be aware of. And so it's practical and it's stuff people can do at home and that's safe. So we really appreciate having you here today as our subject matter expert for this. Thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you for the invitation. It's been a delight.
All right, Dr. Rothenberg, will you please kindly introduce our next guest?
I also really enjoyed hearing what you had to say, Dr. Boyce. And as a naturopathic doctor, also in practice for now almost 35 years, you know, it's the old favorites that we often go back to and that we use in our own families with our own children. And now we've passed on both to our patients and children of our patients, but in my family, my children now are the ones offering these kinds of approaches to their friends and their communities. So it's really just a beautiful part of the medical tradition that comes into the home and out of the home and comes from the heart. And yes, so that's all just wonderful. Dr. Orna Isaacson is going to be joining us now. Orna is a writer and a gardener and a registered herbalist. She's a naturopathic doctor licensed to practice in the state of Oregon and Alaska. And she believes that medicines exist not only in doctors' offices, but also in our kitchens, in our gardens, and in our natural spaces. Dr. Isaacson graduated from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Portland, Oregon, my own alma mater. Her clinical practice focuses on demystifying medicine and uncovering mental roadblocks and healing chronic disease. Her love for wild places brought her to plants for whom she endeavors to speak. She spent 6 years as the lead physician at National College of Naturopathic Medicine's Traditional Roots Institute. So without further ado, here is Dr. Orna Isaacson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rothenberg. Thank you so much to everyone. I want to talk about my theme for this year, which is love the plants you're with. So this follows on what Dr. Boyce was talking about the 50-mile radius. And I would just like to say that while I am a bioregional herbalist and I use a lot of plants that grow in the woods here by the beach and the mountains, I also live in an urban area. And so to love the plants you're with in an urban area, we often have different options. So looking to not just the plants that evolved in the place, but the other plants that live and thrive in the place and the plants that we intentionally put in those places. So think about gardens, even street trees. Trees that you can find in city parks can have important medicine for us. So I want to talk a little bit about how plant medicines work. So humans evolved with nature, and we evolved the nature around us, and that includes the plants. And medicine, as Dr. Rothenberg said in my introduction, medicine isn't something that just lives in a doctor's office. As Dr. Boyce was describing, it's in our kitchens with garlic, which is one of my top three desert island plant medicines. They're in our gardens, they're in our street trees, they're in our broader environment. And there are lots of ways to access plant medicines, as Dr. Boyce also described. The one thing that I think, one of the many things that I think is incredibly cool about plant medicines is that the plants create all sorts of complicated chemistry that can support us from many different angles. And so we're going to talk about that. So first of all, I want you to look at this tree. We're talking about how they do this. So here's a tree. It's a picture that I found online. This is what the tree looks like when it's all mellow and relaxed.
Dr. Isaacson, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you have not put your slides up. You need to share your screen so that everybody else can your slides.
Did that.
Maybe try it again. Maybe it just got a little stuck out there in the natural ether sphere. I know that you have a slide deck. There we are. Perfect. Thank you.
But are you seeing my slides?
We are. Yep,
Okay.
we are.
Okay.
And we are also seeing you. So you are good to go.
Okay. Okay. So did you see this? Had you seen this slide?
We're seeing it now, and you can feel free to flip through early slides if we missed them, and then just scoop up
Okay.
right in the midst where you are now is perfect.
So this is the tree. This is the tree doing its tree thing. This is it relaxed. So it's taking sunlight and air and water and converting it to sugars and being a happy, relaxed tree. This is what it looks like when it's stressed. Unlike humans or animals who can run away from a stressor, plants can't do that. So the way they defend themselves is with chemistry. And many of the chemicals that the plants make to defend themselves and keep themselves healthy, Dr. Boyce was talking about eucalyptus creating a little fog of essential oils around itself to protect itself from dehydration. So many of the chemicals that plants make to defend themselves are also useful for us. Cool word of the day, xenohormesis. Xeno means foreign. Hormesis is a protective response to stress. So the plants, when they're stressed out, they create these chemicals, and we have co-evolved with them to take some of their, to take some of the benefit that they have created and use it for ourselves as well. So this gets to the bioregional herbalism idea that the plants growing around you are facing some of the same stressors that you are. So if you live in a very hot environment, you'll have plants that are better adapted to dealing with heat. If you live in a cold, damp environment, plants will have evolved to address some of the issues that can come with cold and damp. And what it's really about for the plants and for us is resilience, the idea of bending instead of breaking, the idea that a stressor comes at you and you have the ability to respond to it instead of just crashing. Now, plants help our bodies basically do what they already do. For the most part, they don't do that work for us. And we shouldn't really look to them for that purpose. There are obviously exceptions, plants that are very, very strong, plants that will kill us, plants that will make us think we have more energy than we do, for instance, coffee. But for the most part, when we're talking about plant medicine as part of improving health or optimizing health, we're not looking to the plants to do the work for us. We're looking to the plants to help us do our work. And again, they do this through multiple mechanisms, complex chemistry that they've developed to protect themselves. So medicine, this is what medicine looks like. It can be in your kitchen counters. So right up there with garlic is one of my very favorite plants to love that you're with is thyme. This is just your regular garden thyme, the salad dressing herb, things that we add to our vegetables. And for something as simple as thyme and as accessible as thyme, most people have this in their cabinets at home. It does an incredible number of things. So first of all, it makes our food taste good. That helps us want to eat, and smelling our food is part of what turns on the digestive process. So we smell the food, our brains go, oh wow, food is coming, and it sends signals all through our digestive tract to get the complicated timing and all of those processes started and working and lined up. The compounds that make it smell so good, the aromatics, help reduce gas and improve digestion. And they're also fairly strongly antimicrobial. So all of this is really useful if you have great food, it's great. But if you have food that's a little older, a little iffy, one of the places we're most exposed to the outside world and potential pathogens is from our food, because we're literally taking it into our bodies. So having things that make our food taste better, or that we have evolved to think taste good, with our food, which is a potential source of ingesting pathogens, it's this really clever coevolution. But those antimicrobial compounds aren't just useful for our food. One of my favorite ways to use time, and this is actually how I became an herbalist and a naturopathic physician, is as an herbal steam. So when you do this, and I'll show you a little video in a second, when you do this, you're getting those essential oils from the plant matter itself, because as Dr. Boyce said, essential oils, they're really strong, and thyme essential oil will burn. But if you have the essential oils and you volatilize them in steam and you inhale them, you're getting those compounds directly onto the surfaces of the sinuses, the throat, and the lungs. So for many years, I was describing this process to my patients using hand signals, and they just sort of looked at me blankly. And I realized that the hand signals weren't demonstrating how easy this is to do. So I made this quick video. It's 7 seconds. Play it twice, just so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm putting my hair back, putting thyme in the bowl, boiling water, and making a tent with a towel to breathe the steam. I'll just do that one more time. So thyme in the bowl and making a tent to breathe in the steam. This is great, great smelling. It's a way to make a huge difference. I have patients who do this at the beginning of any kind of upper respiratory or lower respiratory tickle, really knock things out. And really, almost any of the aromatic herbs will be useful in this way. So the next plant I want to talk about is beloved elderberry. It is beloved in part because it's usually prescribed in a syrup, which is sweet. So it's a sweet, nice tasting medicine. So people like that about it. The sweetener is there to preserve it. And also, when the sweetener is honey, honey has its own medicinal benefits. We use elderberry often because it is a very reliable antiviral medication. So there's a lot of research showing that it's very effective to shorten the duration and severity of influenza. And there was some thought initially that the way it worked, or one of the ways it worked, was preventing the virus from actually attaching to the body. It's not clear that that is actually how it's working, but what we do know is that it has helped building the resilience of the human. It's helped building that vitality so that the body can do what it does and fight off the infection. So vitality and resilience. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about elderberry is that every so often this controversy arises about whether it is inflammatory. Now, inflammation is a normal, natural, healthy thing our body does to repair and protect itself. But too much inflammation, or having inflammation on a high level, sort of like a rolling boil all the time, causes a lot of problems. So we don't want that. And especially with some people who have autoimmune disorders, where they have higher levels of inflammation generally, or in cases where too much inflammation can run away and cause some dire health effects, we worry about anything that really boosts inflammation. So there's this idea that elderberry does that. And this was shown to be the case in Petri dish studies. So not so much in human beings, but in a laboratory. And it is true that elderberry does increase the production of some chemicals in those situations that promote more and higher levels of inflammation. But other studies, again in Petri dishes, show that compounds in elderberry lower inflammation or promote chemicals in our bodies that lower inflammation. So overall, the net effect is one of balancing with a tendency toward lowering inflammation. So there are people with autoimmune disease who, when they take elderberry, they experience a flare in their symptoms. Usually, if they stop taking elderberry, that flare goes away. There are other people with autoimmune disease who find that taking elderberry regularly helps improve their symptoms. So generally, this is a very safe, well-tolerated medicine. And one of the things that I love about it is that elderberry grows in most of North America. Actually, I think it grows in both hemispheres, mostly in the Northern Hemisphere, but it's readily accessible. This makes it a powerful people's medicine. So you can go and you can harvest it from the trees and you can make your own elderberry syrup or elixir or just tea. You can dry them. It's very accessible and it's very inexpensive when you do it yourself. So another love the plant you're with, love the plants you're with plant that is very, very broadly available and cursed by some, but beloved by many others, is dandelion. So it is the ultimate in medicine is everywhere. The leaves and the root are bitter, and the taste of bitter is one that we've sort of lost. It's sort of fallen out of favor in our culture. But bitter is a very important flavor for turning on digestion. So in the way that the smelling of food, when we were talking about thyme, tells the brain to turn on digestion, the taste of bitter does the same. The root is a great way to support digestion and detoxification, and it also creates compounds that help support healthy diversity of flora in the gut, which we know is really important and protective. The leaves are, as I said, they're bitter, but they're also diuretic, and diuretic means they help us release water. And we can use that, and naturopathic doctors use that effect to help lower blood pressure in some patients. So one of the first line medications for blood pressure is a diuretic, but that can leach minerals from the body. Taking something like dandelion leaf helps restore minerals to the body while also having that effect of lowering levels of water in the bloodstream and lowering blood pressure. And then from a nutrition perspective, it's a great thing to add to any kind of mixed greens. A little more palatable cooked. It's a little more palatable with other greens. But 1 cup of boiled dandelion leaf, and boiling is not really the best way to do it, has 144% of the US daily value of vitamin A. It's only 32% of the vitamin C, but also high levels of vitamin K. So it is a great, easy garden medicine that you can add to boost the nutrition of all of your food. And then the last plant that I want to talk about is this one. And this is the relationship people have had with lavender basically since forever. So it is another one of these salad dressing herbs, although as a flavor, it's another one that's fallen out of favor in modern North America. But like thyme, it does many of the same things. It's tasty, reduces gas, improves digestion, fights bacteria and viruses. And it's also in improving digestion. It has the aromatics that thyme has, so it works on that level. But it also has some bitters like dandelion has, so it works for digestion on that level. And then in terms of fighting bacteria and viruses, the root of the Latin name, lavandula or lavender, comes from lavare, which in Latin is to wash or to clean. So lavender is traditionally used, so much so that it's in its Latin name and its common name, used to disinfect and heal. It is also really well known as calming the nervous system. So you put a little of lavender in your room and you smell that smell, and it's just very calming. It supports mood, and it, not to say that it does the work for us. And Dr. Boyce was talking about, not thinking of these herbs as drugs, but there is some research that shows that lavender can help support the chemical messengers in our brain that are usually the targets for pharmaceutical therapies for anxiety and depression. And this is a great one to put in a tea for heartbreak. Just look at the picture. I mean, this picture really, to me, exemplifies the calming just joy of lavender. And we can get the benefits from tea, from just smelling the plant. I think we can get benefits just from looking at pictures of the plant. We can add it to food, so it's traditional in the spice blend Herbes de Provence. We can use it in a steam. I was sick a few months ago, and there was no time in the place I was staying, but they had a little jar of Herbes de Provence, so I put that in a bowl and did the steam that I showed you before. And as Dr. Boyce was saying about tea tree, this is another one that we can use as an essential oil directly on the skin. So we can use it for wounds, we can use it for abrasions, we can use it, my favorite way to use it for skin is as a facial, again with a steam. It will have those effects on the respiratory tract, but it's also just lovely on the skin. So here are two teas that are really popular in my clinic. These are not the only brands. You can get them in lots of different places. You can mix them yourselves, but the chamomile lavender is really the #1 thing that my patients pick when they come in, and often I'm drinking it with them during office visits. And then the roasted dandelion root is really a tasty way to get dandelion into you. And then a couple of great books. On the left is the book Spice Apothecary by Bevan Clare. She is a registered herbalist. She's not a naturopathic doctor, but she also teaches nutrition, and she's so smart. And this book is just beautiful, and it gives many different recipes. And the basic premise is that we can get to health with our diet, but we can get to optimal health by including spices, just everyday things like some of the ones that we've been talking about today, by including those in our meals. Just a little bit every day. Garlic is in there, lavender is in there, calendula, which Dr. Boyce talked about, is in there. So it's a really fun book, and you don't need to be an expert to get a lot of good out of it. And then the second book here is by one of our naturopathic colleagues, Dr. Jillian Stansbury. This is part of a 5-book set, and this is a pretty advanced book. This is an herbal education. But if you want to dig deep, or if you want to just have some easy recipes for blending herbal formulas for yourself and your family, these books are completely amazing. And if you want to study and you're a person who learns best with reading, this series of books is a complete herbal education. So thank you very much. I'm so excited to be able to join you today. I'm Dr. Orna Isaacson. You can find me on drorna.net. If you just Google Dr. Orna, you'll find me on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Medium, on Twitter. I'm all over and very easy to find. So thank you for your interest in plant medicine, and I hope you love the plants you're with.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Orna. We really appreciate this. Your information is just so clear and fun. Those pictures are beautiful. You know, this is practical wisdom from the earth. Thank you for sharing this with our audience. We hope that everyone finds things that they can take away and benefit from. So let's see, Dr. Isaacson, I'd love to get from you if you have an idea for a fun, easy recipe that people can make at home, especially if they find themselves at home with kids?
Oh, there are so many.
Okay, just pick one. Just pick one. What's your
Well,
fave?
I would say that chamomile lavender tea. I
Ooh,
did this in a class I guess it was about 2 years ago, with a group of women who had been growing lavender and wanted to find different things that they could make with it.
sure.
So we had the lavender and we added chamomile, just equal parts, and then they had that as a tea. We
Hmm.
also the stems and the leaves from the lavender
Hmm.
and added them to just white vinegar. And then you can use that to clean kitchen counters, to clean and disinfect.
Okay, okay. Practical applications, right? Keeping that home clean along with using products that are not toxic, things that are from the world of nature. So you can use them and not be worried if a little one is around and gets exposed, it's no problem. They're not harmed.
Right, right.
Dr. Boyce, I'd love to ask you the same question. Do you have a favorite recipe that you suggest for people?
Oh, you're on mute, dear. You're
Thank
on
you.
mute.
Thank
Okay.
you. I'm thinking of a couple. One is that right now, when we're recording, it's hot season. So this is a great time to make different herbal teas like peppermint tea and then freeze them in ice cubes. And it's a lovely thing to give to kids. And if you've got fruit around, you can also like berries, things like that. You can freeze them as well. And they're like a great alternative to some kind of a frozen, some kind of a frozen treat for kids. And, and Dr. Rothenberg, would you be willing to share about you're making pesto? You can put all kinds of herbs. You can sneak all
Yeah.
kinds of herbs into
Before we
pesto.
went live with our recording, I was just talking about my pesto making this morning, and I have these beautiful miniature ball jars that I have made for gifts for some of my neighbors and friends. And you know, the guy that invented the ball jar, interestingly enough, it really revolutionized home canning and the ability. Now, this is not canned, but to do more things with putting up foods, fruits, vegetables, and other things that I really personally enjoy doing with some of my spare time, especially in these summer months in New England. But I did make a traditional pesto today just with basil, which is a beautiful carminative herb. It's really helpful for the digestive process. And pine nuts, which of course are filled with very healthy oils. Olive oil, a beautiful anti-inflammatory. And a little bit of local Parmesan cheese that is made by some farmers in our neighborhood. So a fun project for me without my kids at home, but it's definitely something that we used to do with our kids. And I would always add to that, you know, at home with kids, to add the sort of arts and crafts part of it for the kids that are interested in using ribbons and markers and making nice family labels. That can be an inexpensive, fun project that kind of hits people at a bunch of different areas of potential interest.
Nice.
We have that
Nice.
tonight, gluten-free pasta with some grilled portobello mushrooms. So I think it's going to be good.
I want to come to your house for dinner.
We wanted to thank you both so much for your sharing from your hearts and your wisdom. We want to invite everybody to tune in next week, same time. We will be sharing hands-on medicine, particularly acupressure and hydrotherapy, which are other wonderful, powerful approaches that can be used at home, that can be taught to even small people, can learn how to do these things at home to help themselves both prevent illness and address illnesses that arise and optimize health. So thank you for tuning in to our 5-part series, and we hope to see you again in the not too distant future. Take care, everybody. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.